It began as whispers in the air, the kind of murmurs that ripple through the basketball world and make even the most seasoned fans uneasy. Then, in one shocking instant, it became reality. Stephanie White, the coach who once carried the Indiana Fever's vision, was gone. In her place, the franchise unveiled a name that stunned every corner of the sport: Larry Bird. A living legend, a basketball architect, a symbol of Indiana greatness stepping into the WNBA. The decision didn't just rewrite headlines, it rewrote history itself, leaving Caitlin Clark, fans, and analysts gasping in disbelief at what it meant. Nobody expected it. Not the fans crammed into Gainbridge Fieldhouse, buzzing for another night of basketball. Not the commentators who thought they'd seen every possible twist in this league. And certainly not Caitlin Clark, who suddenly found herself standing at a microphone, carrying words that would set the sports world ablaze. "Larry Bird," she said, blunt and clear. The reaction was instantaneous. Shockwaves ricocheted through the arena. Gasps replaced cheers, silence replaced chants, and in that frozen moment, the WNBA was no longer the same. A legend had arrived, and nothing would ever be ordinary again. This wasn't simply a change of leadership. It was a seismic event, the kind that bends the arc of an entire sport. The WNBA had never seen a transition like this before. Replacing a steady, modern coach with one of the greatest basketball minds ever created a story bigger than basketball itself. Was this strategy? Was it desperation? Or was it the boldest gamble in league history? Analysts scrambled for answers. Social media ignited. And yet, the central figure, the rookie star Caitlin Clark, was left speechless, caught between awe and uncertainty. Her journey had suddenly collided with basketball immortality. When the news broke, the question wasn't just about Bird. It was about control. Who truly steers the destiny of professional basketball? Was this Clark's influence reaching beyond the court? Was this the Fever's front office, seizing a once-in-a-generation chance? Or was it something deeper, a reshaping of how women's basketball defines leadership itself? The old rules no longer applied. With Bird stepping in, the boundaries of power, player agency, and league identity blurred. For the first time, fans wondered if the WNBA wasn't simply evolving. It was being reborn in front of their eyes, piece by explosive piece. The night it happened, the atmosphere inside Gainbridge was almost unreal. Thousands of voices, once loud and feverish, were suddenly silenced by the weight of Clark's words. Every ear strained for confirmation, every camera locked in, every heartbeat synchronized with the revelation. Stephanie White was out. Larry Bird was in. The building trembled with the weight of its own history. For years, Indiana basketball had been searching for its defining moment. Now it stood before them, not just in a rookie phenom, but in the return of a legend whose name carried the weight of basketball's very soul. Yet, beneath the fireworks, another storm had been brewing. Stephanie White's downfall didn't come from thin air. It began with a single phrase, spoken the wrong moment, in the wrong way. After a hard-fought win, White described Caitlin Clark's absence due to injury as a blessing in disguise. To her, it was praise for resilience, recognition of players stepping up. To fans, it was sacrilege. It sounded like dismissal, like erasure of the very player who had turned the Fever into heartbeat of the WNBA. The internet reacted instantly, and White's credibility started to unravel. Social media transformed White's words into a wildfire. Clips of her post-game press conference flooded timelines. Angry fans dissected every syllable, arguing she had insulted the league's brightest star. She's saying Caitlin holds the team back. One viral post declared. Another cut even deeper. I wouldn't shed a tear if Clark never returned. Hashtag skewered the coach. Post racked up thousands of retweets, and the chorus grew louder. I hate this coach. What had been meant as encouragement was now twisted into controversy. White found herself branded not as a mentor, but as a barrier standing in Clark's way. The timing couldn't have been worse. Clark wasn't resting. She was recovering, fighting through pain, pushing herself to return, only to hear her absence described as an advantage. To fans, it felt insulting. To Clark, it felt personal. The weight she carried wasn't just about points and assists. She was a symbol of the Fever's rebirth, the heartbeat of Indiana basketball. The reason arenas sold out overnight, reducing her absence to a blessing, sounded like erasing her value entirely. That one statement, paired with growing friction between coach and star, created a rift too wide to ignore. Behind closed doors, the tension was no secret. Clark herself admitted it. On a podcast, she confessed what many already suspected. Her instinctive, high IQ, fearless style didn't always align with White's system. She recalled games where her brilliance was shackled by restrictions. A 32-point, 9-assist, 8-rebound performance still left her feeling boxed in. Against New York, nearly logging a triple-double, she was benched after a turnover. To Clark, it wasn't discipline. It was suppression. Basketball, she insisted, wasn't about avoiding mistakes. It was about seizing opportunities. But under White's guidance, those opportunities were often stripped away before they could shine. Even late-game strategy became a point of frustration. With leads in hand, Clark watched as White's system slowed the game, shifting to cautious clock management rather than pressing the advantage. For Clark, who thrived on instinct and tempo, it felt like leaving points on the floor, draining the energy from both team and fans. Worse, she began to feel molded into someone else entirely. Comparisons to Paige Buchers, a brilliant but more restrained player, left her unsettled. She wasn't built for restraint. She was built for improvisation, creativity, and fearless momentum. White's vision dimmed her light, and the disconnect grew unbearable. Fans began asking the question no one wanted to say aloud. Was Stephanie White truly the right coach for Caitlin Clark? Her credentials were solid, her reputation respected. But greatness isn't always about resumes. It's about chemistry. Clark needed trust, freedom, and a system that embraced her instincts. Without it, brilliance was reduced to containment. History has shown that stars only reach their full greatness when allowed to play their game, not forced into someone else's mold. And in Clark's case, the stakes were even higher because she wasn't just a player, she was the WNBA's biggest cultural force. Caitlin Clark wasn't simply playing basketball, she was transforming it. Her arrival in Indiana turned the Fever from an afterthought into the epicenter of women's sports. From the moment she laced up her sneakers, everything shifted. Ticket sales exploded, leaping more than 400%. Games became spectacles, fans traveling from across the country just to witness her brilliance. Highlights spread like wildfire, each no-look pass or logo 3 creating digital earthquakes. The Fever weren't just a team anymore. They were a movement. And at the center stood Clark, the rookie whose charisma and talent turned Indiana into basketball's most electrifying stage. The impact went beyond the hardwood. Corporate sponsors, once hesitant, suddenly scrambled to attach their names to the Fever. Merchandise sales skyrocketed. Local businesses aligned with the team. National brands and even global campaigns poured in, drawn by Clark's magnetic presence. In a matter of months, the Fever transformed from overlooked franchise to commercial powerhouse. Media coverage followed, not as occasional features, but as daily storylines. Talk shows, late-night interviews, front-page articles. Clark was everywhere. Her influence stretched from arenas to boardrooms, reshaping not only the Fever's finances, but the entire WNBA's relevance in the broader sports conversation. Social media became her empire. Every highlight clip turned viral. Every stat line sparked debate. Every press conference became a headline. Fans who had never watched a WNBA game were suddenly captivated. Hashtags trended nightly, millions tuning in just to catch her next move. Clark wasn't just the face of a franchise, she was the face of the league. Her influence carried weight in ways rarely seen by rookies. Reports swirled that her voice reached into organizational decisions, from team strategy to coaching approaches. She wasn't just playing the game, she was shaping the very structure of professional basketball itself. This influence made the decision even more powerful. Rarely does a rookie become the architect of a franchise's destiny. But Caitlin Clark had changed the rules. Her presence gave the Fever leverage, vision, and a new identity. She wasn't only their star. She was their future, their financial engine, their cultural heartbeat. Every move the organization made now revolved around her orbit. And when the tension with Stephanie White became too visible to ignore, it was only a matter of time before leadership faced the ultimate choice: protect tradition or embrace transformation. The answer? Enter Larry Bird. Larry Bird's name is etched in the DNA of basketball itself. 3 NBA championships, 3 MVP awards, 12 All-Star appearances, a career that didn't just dominate, but defined an era. And when he retired, he didn't fade into memory. He became a coach, guiding the Indiana Pacers to Eastern Conference Finals. Later, an executive, shaping rosters with foresight and precision. Bird wasn't just a player, he was a strategist, a visionary, a force who could transform not just individuals, but entire organizations. And now, that force was stepping into the WNBA, carrying the weight of Indiana pride onto a new stage. Bird's story can't be separated from his roots. From French Lick, Indiana, he carried lessons of discipline, grit, and relentless competitiveness. His rise at Indiana State, culminating in the iconic 1979 NCAA championship battle with Magic Johnson, remains one of the most legendary moments in college basketball history. Though he lost that night, Bird gained immortality. His calm precision, ice-cold execution, and unyielding hunger were broadcast to the world. Decades later, his name still carries the power to silence rooms. And now, that same aura was about to merge with the WNBA's brightest new star, Caitlin Clark. For Indiana fans, the symbolism was undeniable. Bird wasn't just a legend, he was homegrown. His identity was woven into the fabric of the state's basketball culture. To see him return not to the NBA, but to the Fever, felt like destiny. A collision of eras, Indiana's past meeting Indiana's future. Bird's legacy meeting Clark's promise. For the WNBA, the impact couldn't be overstated. His presence wasn't just about strategy. It was legitimacy. A sign that women's basketball deserved the same respect, attention, and leadership as the NBA's greatest dynasties. It was proof the Fever weren't just rebuilding. They were revolutionizing. And yet, the intrigue only grew. Was this Bird's choice, or was it Clark's influence? Did ownership orchestrate the move behind closed doors? Or did Clark's gravity pull a legend back into the game? Analysts speculated endlessly. Commentators filled airwaves with theories. Was this a gamble, a masterstroke, or both? The truth remained buried in whispered conversations and late-night negotiations. What mattered most was the result. A partnership no one dared imagine had become reality. Larry Bird and Caitlin Clark, a living legend and a rising phenom. Together, they stood ready to rewrite basketball history. The possibilities were staggering. Imagine practices under Bird's guidance, every drill infused with championship wisdom, every huddle shaped by decades of strategic brilliance. Picture Clark, her instincts unleashed, her creativity sharpened by the mentorship of one of basketball's sharpest minds. The results could be revolutionary. Clark's fearless scoring, combined with Bird's disciplined vision, might create a brand of basketball never before seen in the WNBA. And with each win, each highlight, each headline, the Fever would rise from franchise to phenomenon, forcing the world to reckon with the unstoppable force born from their unlikely union. But the ripple effect wouldn't stop at Indiana's borders. Media outlets would swarm, every game broadcast nationally, every press conference dissected. The Fever would dominate headlines, their every move analyzed like a presidential campaign. Social media would turn each Bird-Clark interaction into viral currency. Corporate sponsors would flood in, desperate to associate with the duo reshaping sports culture. Ticket sales would surge. Arenas would sell out. Fans from across the country would travel just to witness it firsthand. The Fever wouldn't just be a team. They would be the epicenter of basketball conversation, men's or women's, across the globe. And then there was the cultural impact. Beyond the dollars, beyond the headlines, this partnership could become a beacon for women's sports worldwide. Bird's presence alone would validate the WNBA in ways numbers never could. His arrival would tell the world, women's basketball isn't a sideshow, it's the main event. With Clark beside him, the message doubled in strength. The old stereotypes, the dismissive narratives, they wouldn't stand against the weight of this alliance. Together, Bird and Clark could shatter the boundaries of gender, proving greatness belongs to those bold enough to seize it, no matter the stage. The long-term vision was even more powerful. Youth programs could flourish under Bird's mentorship. Development pipelines could strengthen. Community outreach could expand, making the Fever not just a team, but a symbol of empowerment. Imagine the next generation of young girls seeing Clark and Bird together, redefining what leadership looks like in sports. Imagine the lessons of toughness, creativity, and fearlessness being taught from hardwood to classroom. The Fever had the chance to evolve from franchise into movement, their legacy stretching far beyond wins and losses, into the realm of cultural transformation and enduring inspiration. At its core, this was a story of eras colliding. Larry Bird embodied history, discipline, vision, old school grit, Caitlin Clark embodied the future. Fearless improvisation, digital spectacle, and modern charisma. Together, they bridged generations. Their partnership wasn't just about plays or systems. It was about redefining leadership, redefining the WNBA, and redefining basketball itself. The message was clear. This wasn't simply coaching. It was a declaration. A declaration that greatness knows no gender, no limits, no boundaries. The Indiana Fever had just written the first chapter of a new era, and the sports world would never look the same again. So the question remained, hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. What happens next? Caitlin Clark stood at the center, the messenger of transformation, the rookie who had already shifted the landscape of the WNBA. Larry Bird entered as the architect, the legend with the tools to build something lasting. Together, they carried not just the hopes of Indiana, but the weight of women's basketball worldwide. Would this gamble deliver glory or collapse under its own enormity? One thing was certain, the WNBA would never again be ordinary. The revolution had already begun.